In the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, there are many characters who shape the story. Heroes, villains, people stuck somewhere in between. But somehow, the character I want to talk about is Iroh. At first, he looks like the funny uncle, always calm, always talking about freaking tea, always acting like he does not care about anything serious. But when we really follow his story, the background and reasons why he became like that are very interesting. In his youth, he was one of the most feared commanders in the Fire Nation, a respected general, a symbol of power. Over time, that same man became a mentor, a guide, and a replacement father to someone who desperately needed one. What makes Iroh stand out is the way he looks at life. He does not see power as something to chase. He sees balance as something to protect. He talks like someone who has already made the wrong choices. And when you look at the full journey of his life, from feared general to quiet tea shop owner to someone who chooses peace over power again and again, you start to realize this is not just a character arc. This is a story about regret, grief, healing, and choosing who you become after life does not go your way. Before he became the chill uncle we know, Iroh lived a completely different life. He was the first son of Fire Lord Azulon, raised inside a system that drilled one idea into him from childhood. Power is everything. Strength means respect. Victory means worth. He grew up surrounded by war, politics, and expectations, shaped into the perfect heir before he ever had space to question any of it. He was naturally gifted at firebending, trained relentlessly, and pushed toward greatness. Over time, he became one of the most feared generals in the Fire Nation. People respected him, people feared him, and for a long time, that probably felt like the only thing that mattered to him. The title Dragon of the West did not come from nothing. Iroh met the dragons and learned from them something almost no one else had done. They taught him that fire is not just destruction, but life energy. That it can warm, protect, and give life. But at that point in his life, that understanding had not reached his heart yet. He was still chasing reputation, legacy, and recognition. That was the identity built for him, long before he chose for himself. And that path led him straight to Ba Sing Se. The siege of Ba Sing Se was supposed to be the peak of Iroh's career. 600 days of fighting, 600 days of stubborn belief that he would be the one to finally break the city that no Fire Lord before him could conquer. Victory there would have meant everything he had been working toward his entire life. Status, legacy, a name carved into history. But while he was chasing that future, he was also still a father, and that part of his life was slowly being pushed aside. His son died on that battlefield, far from home, far from safety, and that loss did huge damage to Iroh. The ambition collapsed there. The identity he had built his whole life around suddenly felt empty. He did not just lose his son. He lost the meaning behind everything he thought he was doing. After that, he withdrew from the war, stepped away from power, and stopped chasing the throne he technically had the right to claim. From the outside, it looked like weakness. In reality, it was grief, and grief changes people. After his son's death, Iroh stepped away from everything. As the eldest son, he had more right to become Fire Lord than Ozai. But when Ozai took that path through manipulation and ambition, Iroh did not fight back. The idea of power no longer felt important enough to destroy what was left of his life. Ozai believed in domination, control, and fear. Iroh moved in the opposite direction. He understood that fighting for the throne would only continue the same cycle that already cost him his son, so he chose restraint instead of revenge. He chose not to become the same kind of man who hurt people. Instead of trying to control the world around him, Iroh started focusing on the one thing he still had control over: who he decided to be next. After stepping away from power, Iroh's life shifted toward Zuko, a kid raised under Ozai's shadow, taught that worth comes from strength and obedience. When Zuko failed to meet that standard, he paid for it with his face and his exile. Sent away with an impossible task, capturing the Avatar, and told not to come back until he succeeded. He was angry, confused, and alone long before the journey even began. Iroh chose to stay with him, as an uncle who refused to let another boy in his family get swallowed by the same mindset that destroyed him. He did not lecture Zuko. He did not force him to change. He stayed close, through tea, small conversations, music, and patience. When Zuko failed, Iroh stayed. When Zuko pushed him away, Iroh stayed. He taught him that fire is not just anger, but energy. That power without balance eats you alive. That sometimes losing your way is part of finding something better. Slowly, Without forcing it, he gave Zuko something Ozai never did: stability and warmth. Iroh's wisdom shows up in small moments. The way he treats tea like it actually matters. The way he notices a flower on the side of the road. The way he can sit in silence without feeling awkward. To most people around him, especially early Zuko, he just looks lazy or unserious, but it is awareness. He pays attention to things other people rush past because he already knows what happens when you live your whole life chasing only big goals. He talks about bad tea being just hot water. He points out that something dying does not mean nothing new can grow. He laughs easily. He jokes in serious situations, not because he does not understand the weight of things, but because he does. These are not random habits. This is how he stays grounded. This is how he survives with everything he has lost without becoming bitter. While everyone else in the Fire Nation is obsessed with power, Iroh focuses on presence. After everything that had happened to him, Iroh did not disappear from the world. He just stopped trying to stand in front of it. Behind the scenes, he became part of the White Lotus, a group that cared more about balance than borders, and when the time came, he helped liberate Ba Sing Se, the same city he once tried to conquer for pride. The difference this time was clear. Before, it was about legacy. Now, it was about fixing something he once helped break. He did not need credit for it. He just did the work. He also understood that the final fight was never meant to be his. He did not try to replace Aang. He did not try to take Ozai down himself. Instead, he stayed where he was most useful, supporting, guiding, waiting for Zuko to figure things out on his own, and make sure that Zuko will not end up like his son. That choice matters, because it shows that he was no longer chasing the role of hero. He was focused on the outcome. A world that did not repeat the same mistakes he once made. Balance world. After the war ended and Zuko finally stood on his own feet, Iroh made a decision. He chose to leave the human world and stay in the spirit world permanently. For him, his journey is complete. Iroh spent his whole life attached to things, status, legacy, being the perfect son, the perfect general, the perfect heir. And every time he held on to those identities too tightly, life took something away from him. His son, his future, his place in the world. By the end of his journey, he is no longer trying to hold on to anything. That is very close to what Buddhist philosophy talks about. Letting go of attachment. Letting the ego soften. Accepting that your role in the world has an ending and being okay with that. What matters to him is that Zuko is ready. The world is shifting toward balance again. His duty, in his own way, is finished. So he lets go. Psychologically, this is what growth actually looks like. Becoming less dependent on validation. Maslow called this self-actualization, a state where a person no longer lives for approval, achievement, or status. They live according to inner peace instead. And that is exactly where Iroh ends up, just existing calmly, helping when needed, and enjoying a cup of tea. In the spirit world, he is still doing what he always did, sitting, listening, guiding lost souls who wander too far. Just offering presence. Just a man who finally learned how to be at peace with everything he lived through. There is a Carl Jung quote that says the wound is the place where the light enters you. Iroh's life looks exactly like that. He lost his son. He lost his future. He lost the version of himself he spent years building. Pain does not automatically make people better. Trauma breaks a lot of people. You can see that in Ozai. You can see it in Azula. What separates Iroh is not the pain. It is what he chose to do after the pain. He chose patience over control. He chose guidance over dominance. He chose peace. Existential thinkers say life is not fair and it was never supposed to be. Things get taken, plans collapse, people disappear, meaning is not given, meaning is built. That is Iroh's entire story. He lost everything that once defined him. And what stayed was one thing, the choice of who he wanted to be next. If I got something wrong, correct me in the comments. I actually want to hear your perspective. And tell me what character we should deep dive next. If you enjoyed this kind of breakdown, you can support the channel by dropping a like, subscribing, and turning on the bell so you do not miss future videos. Thank you for watching. Seriously.